wondering how I got into this mix. Mind playing tricks and I'm fiending for a fix.
Welcome to the Conscious Resistance News Wrap-Up. Today is March 1st, 2015. My name is Derek Bros, and thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the weekly news here on the Conscious Resistance Network. I hope you've had a great week, enjoyed yourself, had some time with family and friends. If you're stuck in the snow still, I'm deeply sorry. I hope you got to do something useful with your time. If you're down here in the south and the cold's starting to disappear, I hope you're enjoying the weather and getting prepared to start planting for the spring, as I am. Lots of exciting things going on in the world. And some more disturbing things happening in the world of politics in the news. And also some exciting things going on in the world as far as empowering the people of planet Earth and finding ways to free ourselves beyond the chains that is the government and their institutions and their corporate partners. So this week we're going to be covering 4 stories. I've got it narrowed down. You know, in the past couple episodes, I think I may have tried to fit too much news into one episode. It's about 30-45 minutes. I don't know how interested or how detailed you guys like your news, but I'm a news hound. I'm a fiend for the details and the documents. I like to keep up with that. So I think sometimes I might go too in-depth, but if you prefer in-depth, let me know that as well. And just in general, whatever your thoughts are on this podcast, please reach out to me at dbros, D as in Derek, bros, B-R-O-Z-E, at thehoustonfreethinkers.com, thehoustonfreethinkers.com. If you have suggestions for news I need to cover, guests I need to interview, just anything you want me to focus on while I do this show. And of course, in addition to the Conscious Resistance News, I also record a weekly podcast that is specifically for my Patreon supporters. Patreon is an account that I have where you can sign up for monthly contributions. For as little as $1 a month, you get access to not only this podcast, which is available for free, and all the other articles that I write for free, publicly available, but also my podcast that covers my more personal thoughts. I tend to focus more on philosophy and spirituality, and lately I've been revealing previews of my book, the upcoming book, The Conscious Resistance, Reflections on Anarchy and Spirituality, which is being written by myself and John Vibes. We are so close to being done with the book, but we've moved on to editing now. We have now hired our editor, and we're very thankful for her to help us in this process moving forward, and it's moving great, and I'm very excited about that. Excited to share that with you. But that is one of the things that I share specifically for Patreon supporters. So if you go to patreon.com, patreon.com/Derek Bros, you can find that. And of course, everything, all the links that we cover in the stories, the link to the Patreon account, the link to the Invest page on the Conscious Resistance website, all of that will be available for you in the comments, or the links below in the information during the SoundCloud and the YouTube channel. And of course, please subscribe to our SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/TCR Live. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Conscious Resistance. Follow us on Facebook, The Conscious Resistance Network. Follow us on Twitter at The Conscious RN. My personal Twitter is at dbrosLiveFree. And yeah, be sure to check out the website because we always have lots of new content. And that's what I want to share with you guys first before we get into the news. Lots of exciting things going on in the world of the Conscious Resistance. And as you know, I tend to say this quite often because I'm always overwhelmed with the beautiful work being done by the people that I am blessed to have on this team. Katie Chaos, Aaron, who's our newest contributor to the team. We also have Danilo, aka Peaceful Anarchism. Thank you, brother, for continuing to contribute content. Rolo and Francis, and a couple of others who we're very thankful that they contribute the content that they have. So the most recent piece of news we have here from the Conscious Resistance website comes from Francis. It's called Forgiveness, The Road to Happiness. And I cannot recommend this piece enough. And everything that Francis has written for us on the website has always been great. And this one is no different from the past gems that he has shared with us. This one focuses on forgiveness and the importance of forgiveness on you finding your road to happiness. And of course, as we know, you can't be free if you're not happy. And if you're not happy, then you're not free. And if you can't forgive yourself and if you can't forgive others, then you're not happy. And if you're not happy, then you're not free. So ultimately, the road to forgiveness is the road to happiness, and the road to happiness is the road to freedom, true freedom. Not only freedom in the physical sense that we are all working on and building solutions towards, but that internal freedom that we also seek, which is the whole goal of this conscious resistance. So check out that piece from Francis. Also, we were grateful to have 2 new pieces from Katie Chaos, both of them discussing a very important topic, net neutrality, which we're going to get into in just a bit. Now, Katie did 2 videos. One is net neutrality is a bad idea, and the other is net neutrality is bad, episode 2. So check those out to hear Katie's thoughts on that. And as I said, we had a new team member join this week, Aaron, who is going to be going to Bahrain very soon to report on a couple of different things. I'll leave that quiet for now, but he's joined the team now, and he put out a new article called The Ongoing Saga of Sweden versus Assange and the Global Surveillance Empire. Some very interesting stuff. Danilo put out a new article called The True Function and History of Regulations. Rollo put out a new piece called Being an Ideologue is Not for Everyone, which I also recommend. And we had a new interview from Danilo as well. He interviewed L. Dixon, hippie anarchist rapper and creative director of Never Get Busted. And of course, last week I did some man on the street interviews asking, do Americans support mandatory vaccinations? And the most recent piece of news that I've added to theconsciousresistance.com is my experience inside of a flotation tank. I just went last week for the first time, and it was a beautiful experience. I have to say, it's something that I thoroughly enjoyed. In the video, I give my recounting of that experience, and I'll leave that there for you to watch and find out exactly what my thoughts are. But I do want to say that this is something we cover in the Conscious Resistance book in Chapter 7, Conscious Healing, the importance and the power behind flotation tanks. And really, I'm learning more and more about this as I'm experiencing it firsthand. But learning the history behind it, Dr. John C. Lilly was one of the first people to develop sensory deprivation tanks, isolation tanks, also known as flotation tanks, in the 60s and 70s, and to experiment with them with LSD, with mushrooms, just complete sensory deprivation. Also, he did some with dolphins and tons of other things. And what you'll find is that when you're in this tank and the water is set to the temperature that your skin is, and you're floating and you're able to completely relax, it creates a state of mind that you may not have been able to access to, because for one, the boundaries between the physical world and the more spiritual, intuitive world, they disintegrate. So you sort of lose this feeling of where your body begins and where your body ends. And this is, this may be something that's outside of your typical experience, but I promise you that there is, just like we're finding with LSD research and psilocybin research and cognitive behavioral therapy and meditation and yoga and all these other forms of alternative, quote-unquote, alternative healing, that they can do powerful things for us as far as getting past the traumas that we're all dealing with. There's plenty of traumas that I know that I'm suffering from and that I'm trying to work to recover from as an empowered individual. And going through experiences such as these flotation tanks and experiencing meditation, for me, are powerful indicators of my potential to heal and what I could, how much more of an empowered being I could become once I'm willing to take those steps to get past my insecurities, my doubts, and fears. And you are able to access those states of your mind through these altered states that are created with flotation tanks. I highly recommend, if you have the opportunity to check out a flotation tank in your area, please do so. Be aware of the type of place you're going to, of course, and really feel it out. But the place I went to, Float Houston, thank you so much, Michelle. The environment is key to having a good experience, and that's with any type of meditation or going into any type of altered states. Your setting is important, the people you're around, the energy, the vibe that you're getting from it. And I felt great there. I felt like I was able to fully relax and go into being myself and not have to worry about anything. And that's really important. So look at that and see if maybe that is a method that might help you heal. Now let's dive into the news, shall we? We've got a couple of very important topics to cover. Some of them I've covered in the past, and some are new to this podcast, but I think they're all equally important. Before we get into these, though, let me remind you that if you want to find any more of my articles, obviously I'm only going to cover 4 today, and I write about 30 a week. you can go to derekbros.contently.com. That's contently as in contently.com. And all my articles, videos, reports, interviews, etc. are there. And I would love for you to check them out there, share them with whoever you think will find them valuable. This latest article is related to a study discussing the impact of fluoride on the thyroid gland. And this is a new study. Now, before we dive into this, let's dissect this a little bit. I know that fluoride still remains in this unfortunate realm of quote-unquote conspiracy or pseudoscience, or, it's just something that plenty of activists and people seem to be weary of diving into because, it's sometimes it's easier just to focus on the topics. Everybody's against surveillance, right? Or you'd assume, right? Most people are against surveillance. So that's an easy target. That's an easy argument to make. You're not discussing a topic like fluoride that is been heavily propagandized and heavily, sedated into this realm of conspiracy, where the average individual hears somebody talk about fluoride, and what is their response? And I've never even seen this movie, but people go, "Oh, Dr. Strangelove, right? Crazy people talking about fluoride." Or they're like, "You know what? My dentist says fluoride's okay. I've been using fluoride my whole life, and I'm not dumb. I'm not dead. You guys are just tripping. You're just worried about the wrong things." But I promise you, if you do the research, and if you look beyond just the trusted medical authorities, the American Dental Association and the CDC, and some of these other people that have, of course, never ever failed us before and only given us the best information. Government can be completely trusted, obviously. Not. If you look into their work and then you look into studies, again, if you're in America or whatever nation you're in, get outside of your own nation. Look at the studies outside of your country, because more than likely, if you're listening to this, you're probably in a Western developed nation that does promote the use of fluoride as if it's a positive thing, and you have your authorities, just like we have ours in the United States, that are promoting this crap. Look beyond them, look to the studies, and see which studies are being suppressed, ignored, and how many times has the position changed on fluoride? Several times. It's going to continue to change. There will never be an admission that, oops, we've been giving you a neurotoxin, as it is classified, that has all these negative health effects. They're just going to slowly reduce it, and leave it up to the local battle for people to remove that. And that's what we need. We need local action. But this new study was published in the BMJ's journal Epidemiology and Community Health, has confirmed fluoride's negative effect on the thyroid gland and a possible connection to depression, weight gain, and other negative health effects. Researchers with the University of Kent in England examined thyroid activity for those in areas with fluoride water and those without. The team examined 95% of the English population in 2012 and 2013 and found high rates of underactive thyroid were 30% more likely in areas with high fluoride concentration. And underactive thyroid can lead to depression, weight gain, fatigue, and aching muscles. And while this study confirms previous studies that show fluoride interferes with the production of iodine for the thyroid, some experts believe the study is not conclusive. Professor David Coggan, professor of occupational environmental medicine at the University of Southampton, believe that the observation could have been caused by some other variable. Quote, "It is quite possible that the observed association is a consequence of other ways in which the areas with higher fluoride differ from the rest of the country. There are substantially more rigorous methods by which the research team could have tested their idea." Perhaps so. Even according to England's Public Health Agency, they released their own report concluding that fluoride was a, quote, "safe and effective way of improving dental care." The director of the Dental Public Health at Public Health England stated that according to their research, they have found no association with reduced thyroid function. However, despite these reassurances, a quick search on fluoride and thyroid studies show that there is a number of possible dangers related to fluoride consumption. First, it's important to understand that fluoride was prescribed in the 1950s by Merck, the pharmaceutical company, as a treatment for overactive thyroids because it would reduce the production in that area. This was prescribed in Europe and in South America. And we can move on to seeing at least a number of studies since 1988 have shown an increased iodine deficiency in humans and animals when exposed to fluoride. And if you didn't know, iodine is essential for proper functioning of the thyroid gland. A lack of adequate iodine intake during childhood can cause permanent brain damage. And in 2006, even the United States' own National Research Council released the report Fluoride in Drinking Water, a scientific review of EPA standards, and they concluded the effects of fluoride on various aspects of endocrine function should be examined further, particularly with respect to a possible role in the development of several diseases or mental states in the United States. Major areas for investigation include the following: thyroid disease, especially in light of decreasing iodine intake by the U.S. population. Now, I go on here to discuss conflicts of interest between the CDC, and I've covered this in the past, and I hope that you guys will read this article to do your own research because it's quite long. I go into the history of emails that have been recently released between the CDC and other health agencies, the American Dental Association, and shows conflicts of interest between these organizations working together to combat anti-fluoride messages. And we go into the history of what is fluoride and the current fight and push against fluoride. I hope that you will look into this further and find the information for yourself and decide what makes sense to you. Decide if you think fluoride is safe for you and your family. I hope that you will come to the conclusion that I have, that it's not a safe practice and that we need more sanity in our health industries, especially when it comes to the children. Think of the children. Won't somebody please think of the children? Yeah, this stuff's going to hurt kids more than anything. Per usual, adults make decisions, bad choices, and it affects children. Here's another bad choice somebody decided to make. The Chicago police have been exposed, I guess you could say, for operating a black site, which is, that's what we can call it. Black sites, of course, are undisclosed location used by typically the CIA and federal government agencies around the world to take people, to torture them, and to take them away from the public in unknown locations that have come to be known as black sites. Well, a recent investigation by The Guardian has revealed that the Chicago Police Department has actually been using a warehouse to illegally hold suspects without access to their family, attorneys, and in some cases they've been subject to beatings. This facility is located in Chicago's Homan Square and has been used as a workstation for special police units. The Guardian interviewed lawyers, former detainees, and others who revealed several facts, including the detainees have been kept out of official arrest databases, so nobody knows where they're at, shackled for extended periods of time, and denied access to attorneys for 12 to 24 hours. Some suspects were as young as 15 years old. One man was found unresponsive while at the facility's interview room and later would die. This, of course, after this report came out, the local media being complicit and slaves to, I guess, the police, or just wanting to uphold the party line, they came out with these articles saying, oh, the Guardian's incorrect, there's no evidence that any of this is going on, blah, blah, whatever. But since then, more and more people who have been taken there have come out to speak. The anti-media reported on this as well as others, showing that these agencies did in fact take people for crimes as little as smoking weed and having possession of cannabis. They were taken and, of course, not put into the regular system so nobody can track them. You know, if one of your friends gets arrested, what is the first thing you do? You call the jail to find out where they're being processed, what the booking is taking place, how long it'll take for you to get them out, etc. But under these conditions, nobody had any information where they're at. Basically, your friend just gets kidnapped and you're like, you're just like, where's Johnny at? Where's Sally at? They just got kidnapped at this protest and the police won't tell us where they're at. So, despite the local Chicago media trying to cover up for the cops, good activists and good journalists have found that this is a true story, and more than likely, there are more of these black sites around the country. And the big question we have to ask ourselves, and that plenty of people have been asking themselves, is this a result of the National Defense Authorization Act of 2012, which was passed by President Obama and allows for the indefinite detention of American citizens without trial or trial by jury or judge? And this is if they're suspected of terrorism or whatever other vague term they want to use to justify detaining good people. We don't know yet because the story is pretty much under wraps. So we're not really sure if this is related to the NDA, if it's just some shitty practices by the local police department. But rest assured, we're not done. We're going to get to the bottom of this. Plenty of good people hit Chicago up yesterday, Saturday afternoon, and went there to shut down Homan Square using the hashtag #GetMo2Chicago. From Gitmo to Chicago, we have imprisonment, we have torture, we have detainment. And this is definitely a dangerous, dangerous step for the United States of America. As far as geographic land masses go, this place has been considered to be free for some time. We can argue all day about whether or not we are free and how free we truly are, but the idea that you could be arrested for something very simple and then taken away to a site where nobody knows where you're at for 12 to 24 hours, I mean, it's a scary thought. I think if that happened to me, knowing that all the things I'm involved in the activism, I might think, holy shit, this is it. Like, they're taking me. I'm never coming home. I would be freaked out, just like anybody would. Keep your eyes on this story. This is, I believe, the biggest story to have broke this past week, and one that is not getting nearly as much mainstream coverage, if any mainstream coverage. I haven't watched the TVs lately, that it needs. So keep your ears and eyes on this one, and if you got any more information on other black sites by local police departments, please contact me. Please get in touch with me so I can help expose this. It's going to be a long road ahead to exposing these places and in getting them shut down, but I believe we can do it. The other top story that we saw really light up the news this week is net neutrality. The FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, which is an unelected board of 5 individuals appointed by the president, unelected, appointed by the president, unelected, appointed by the president. Did you guys catch that? Unelected, appointed by the president. People have no say in who these people are. Yeah, I thought so. So we decided, no, wait, we didn't. They decided, okay, so the people who were unelected and picked by the president decided, hey, we're going to just choose to regulate something that we've never had any control over, namely the internet. None of us had any say on this, and what they've done for the past year is propagandize people into thinking that net neutrality is absolutely necessary. Now, let's break this down. Net neutrality, the idea that there should be an equal playing field on the internet. Is it valuable? Is it important? Is it something that we need in our lives? Of course, we want to preserve the free and open internet. We want to make sure that the internet stays as open for everyone as possible, that there's no censorship, that information is readily available, that any young mind that wants to can come on the internet, can learn a new skill, can find what they're looking for and not have to hide behind government lines and can sift through the propaganda and make up their own mind, right? That's what we're looking for. The idea of net neutrality is designed or was supposedly promoted to stop throttling of internet traffic, namely the idea that corporations, Comcast, Verizon, etc., telecommunications companies could favor certain traffic, let's say government propaganda or, there are other corporations that they own, and could throttle or slow down the traffic to other websites, say independent alternative media news reporting websites that the FCC's buddy Obama or whatever next president that appoints the next people doesn't like. Maybe he might say, hey guys, there's some of these websites, these propaganda websites out there. We need to make sure that they're being blocked out. We don't want Americans to have access to this really crappy information. It's all in the name of freedom and security, of course. So giving a government institution, for one, if you know me, this is a no-brainer. It seems like a bad idea from the outset. And I'm not just trying to tell you what you want to hear, because I know most of my audience is already anarchist or anti-government or, at the very least, doesn't trust the government, doesn't think that the government's institutions are going to live up to their promises. Now, on the surface, is it a positive thing? People say, well, look, if you don't have net neutrality, then the internet's going to be in the hands of the people. Why was that? In the hands of the corporations. Is that not already happening? This is going to happen either way. And what you got to understand, for one, is that the government is a corporation and the government is partnered with these corporations. So if we're trying to stop the corporations from taking over the internet, giving the government, their partner, control of the internet isn't a good idea. It doesn't make much sense. Now, I argued quite a bit with various people on Facebook yesterday about this, and I don't like to spend my time doing that too much, but trying to get them to understand, why do you have such faith in the government? And why do you believe that this unelected board is going to actually do something? Maybe I'm cynical. I think I'm realistic based off years of research and experience in this field that the government is full of shit, and when they promise you something, when they say they're doing something for the good of the public, it's rarely ever have anything to do with the good of the public. Critics say the new rules and suggestions to treat the internet like a public utility will lead to overregulation of the internet. Comcast, AT&T, Verizon, and others have threatened to sue over the regulations, and Republican opponents accuse FCC Chairman Tom Wheeler of giving in to pressure from the White House. Of course, even before net neutrality was done, there was a stack of paper, this 300-page rules that we were not allowed to see ahead of time. So why were we not allowed to see? This is another, you got the red flags going off, right? Government involvement, there's one. Secrecy, not allowed to see the plan before until it's after it's signed, similar to the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and other deals. That's red flag too. Third, the internet is something that is spontaneous in its growth and in its creation. It is anarchy in action. We don't need any type of regulation. We need to promote and allow for open source technological revolutions to continue. There are many other solutions, and I've talked about this as well, and I'll put these articles in the links below. I've written an article, Future of Internet Alternatives, why net neutrality isn't a good idea, and why, if it was to go away, it wouldn't be a bad thing. That rather than looking to the government for answers and for solutions, we need to support financially and morally and, through our promotion, ideas like mesh networks, the outer net, the supernet. So there's so many good ideas out there that are going to push us towards this technological revolution. But government involvement does the exact opposite. It hinders and hurts the free minds from working together and creating new solutions. We need to recognize that. The government is not the answer. The government is not the answer. The government is not the answer. The last story I want to cover today has to do with probably one of the investigations that's closest to my heart lately, and that is the topic of Stingray cell phone surveillance. Now, the reason I say it's so close to my heart is because I've been following this for quite a while, and I've actually had some pretty good luck here in Houston. This past week, I don't take many moments to pat myself on the back because I try to keep my ego in check, and I'm thankful for the things I do, but it's important to keep yourself in check. But I have to say, I am proud of myself. And that's important too. It's important to be able to say you're proud of yourself and to be humble, but to also acknowledge when you do something good that's positive for you. And I'm doing that. I've worked very hard to stay on this Stingray story and to keep the pressure up locally here in Houston and keep people aware of this. It's a tool known as Stingrays that can be used to monitor cell phone traffic. Please look into it. I've covered it in tons of articles again, and this latest article I did is for Ben Swan. It just came out this morning, March 1st. Senator joins Americans questioning the use of Stingray cell phone surveillance. We're going to cover this briefly, and I hope that you will look into it on your own because, as I said, there's plenty of information out there. It's really 2014, some people say, is the year Stingrays went mainstream. I don't think so. I think 2015 is probably going to be the year. 2014 seemed to be the year that activists, privacy advocates, lawyers, etc. started to become aware of it in a large way, and now we're pushing it into the mainstream. 2015, we will expose all the police departments and federal agencies who are using Stingray cell phone surveillance to gather up innocent people's information, and we will hopefully find some way to put a stop to this, or at least to empower the people to be aware of it and to have solutions to combat this surveillance. Recently, Senator Bill Nelson was speaking on the Senate floor about the technology and how he believes that it, quote, poses a grave threat to consumers' cell phone and internet privacy. He also sent a letter to FCC Chairman Tom Wheeler asking why the company behind the Stingray has been able to secure special restrictions on who has access to the details of the devices. Senator Nelson said, "It's time for us to stand up for the individual citizens of this country and their right to privacy." Now, and there's a video here, he gives this 10-minute speech, and it was very good. I'm glad that he did this. This was just last week. Senator Nelson is seeking information on whether or not the FCC sought oversight to make sure that the devices are being used in the way that Harris Corp, the manufacturer of the devices, claimed that they would. He asked for an update from a task force that the FCC previously formed to look into questions regarding the use of Stingrays and similar devices. He says, "When this device is turned over to local law enforcement, are they being adequately trained on judicial protections?" Now, of course, he's not the first senator to speak out about this, thankfully. Earlier this year, we had a bipartisan letter sent to the Department of Justice and Homeland Security by Senator Patrick Leahy and Chuck Grassley asking for more information on how the FBI handles policies related to surveillance equipment such as the Stingrays. Now, this is a topic that, as I said, it's pretty close to my heart because I've been following it closely. There's just an insane amount of secrecy surrounding these devices from the FBI, the FCC, and Harris Corp. In between the three of them, they're sort of just tossing it back and forth about who's going to release information, who won't release information, and the work of journalists such as myself and privacy advocates has really done a great job of revealing some new information regarding how they are used. But it's basically been through lawsuits and by forcing the government. Of course, the government has not been forthcoming with any of the information. The Electronic Frontier Foundation actually released a report last year detailing how local police departments were actively working to fight releases of information. They said, quote, "We're not just worried about how invasive these devices can be, but also that the government has been less than forthright with judges about how and when they use the Stingrays." Indeed, the American Civil Liberties Union acquired some documents through a FOIA request that showed that the company itself, Harris Corp, actually lied to the FCC about the frequency of use. According to a 2010 email, an employee with Harris told the FCC that the devices were only used to provide local and state law enforcement officials with authority to utilize this equipment in emergency situations. Obviously, we know that's a lie. Despite their secrecy, despite their unwillingness to speak about it, the information that has come out has shown that in over 80% of the cases, they have nothing to do with emergencies. They're just the institutions using them for whatever purposes they want. And according to documents released from the Minnesota Star Tribune, we've shown that the FBI actually requested that a state agency in Florida notify them immediately if anyone was requesting information related to the Stingray requests. It said, this is according to the contract that the authorities in Florida or in Minnesota signed. The agency will immediately provide the FBI in order to allow sufficient time for the FBI to intervene to protect the equipment, technology, and information from disclosure and potential compromise. So they need to contact them as soon as people are looking for information. In one case in Sarasota, Florida, there was the U.S. Marshals even stepped in and intervened in a public records request and said, nope, this is our information now, you can't release it. And the list goes on and on. You have judges fighting to get information, some judges saying that no, that the devices aren't subject to public records requests and things like that. It goes on and on. The secrecy has even found its way to here in Houston, where I live. And I last week questioned the chief of police about these devices. He lied to me 2 days in a row, pretending that he has no idea how these devices are used, and at the same time swearing to me that they use them in constitutional manner. Which, until we know how they're using them, where the data is being stored, and until they're willing to talk about them or even acknowledge them, how are we supposed to trust them? Recently, there was actually a couple of victories, though. The Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department announced that they would actually reveal new details on how the programs are used and notify people who may have had the devices used on them. So maybe we'll find something new in the coming days. We can hope for that. And just last week, the ACLU in Florida again released more information on how the agencies over there are using them, and as we expected, in most cases, they are not getting a warrant, and if they do get a warrant, they use vague generic terms that don't specifically state how the Stingray works and what they're capable of. And that's a problem. So what are the solutions for this? As usual, you're going to hear me promote agorism, the idea of building outside of the state, creating solutions in the now instead of waiting for them. Do we really want to trust the FCC to regulate these Stingrays, or to trust the government that they're going to use them in some helpful constitutional way? I don't think so. I think we need to move towards this idea of creating alternative institutions, new free institutions. So what does that mean? It means we want to create new independent media. We want to create new alternative forms of food production that include gardening, sustainability, localization. We want to create new forms of currency, Bitcoin, alternative exchange networks, barter, etc. We want to create new forms of self-governance and community governance, all these things. And at the same time, we need to look towards technology and towards the open source technological evolution to give us the answers. Stop looking to the government for the solution. So what do we do then? We need to support mesh networks. We need to support the outernet, the supernet, all these various ideas, using open source technology to create our own forms of communication. Let's get off of the World Wide Web. Let's get off of their monopolized telephone system. And I don't have the capability yet or the know-how, but I know that somebody else is out there that has the knowledge, and we need to use this knowledge to build and build and build and establish something that is outside of their control, because that is the only solution. There are no solutions within the government. They may offer us band-aids that will string us along for a period of time, but they are not long-term solutions, and those are not solutions we should be pursuing. We should pursue solutions that will free the people today and in the long run, and that is agorism. I'm going to do a video very soon that will break down exactly what agorism is, what Samuel L. Konkin meant when he wrote the two books that exist, the New Libertarian Manifesto and the Agorist Primer, and what practical ways I have used these in my life to make myself more free. Because I think that when it comes to any problem, Stingrays or otherwise, we can apply these solutions and create a new, better world. So I hope you will pay attention and look forward to that. That's all I got for you guys today. I really appreciate you listening and paying attention to the words I have for you. I've got lots of new things coming up in the coming weeks, and I hope you'll stay tuned. Please subscribe to our SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/TCR Live. Subscribe to our YouTube, youtube.com/Conscious Resistance. And yeah, find me on Facebook if you want to get in touch and work together. Let's do this. Please share this podcast if you found it valuable, and I'll talk to you next week. I hope you have a good week. I hope you spend it with people you care about. Show yourself some love. Show those around you some love. And as always, if you can hear this, you are the resistance. Peace.